All right, welcome back. It's me, Bill, and we're talking about net play decision making. And it's kind of a complicated topic. And this is one of the things that makes it difficult for people to come to the net is that they aren't decisive. They decide poorly and they pay the price. Or they're like hesitant. They don't decide, decisively enough. So these wrong decisions and these not knowing how to decide to go to the net comes into play. So, so in the book that's coming up, which I'm in the very final stages of editing, and you can get a free copy of the book if you promise, ironclad promise, to review it for me, read it, review it, and give me a nice little 5-sentence review that I can use. That would be terrific. But we have these different levels of player. We have the net avoider. You have these people who they come to the net to shake hands, and even then they try not to get too close to the net when they're shaking hands because the net, right? And then you have the net visitor, and the net visitor is not particularly confident at the net, but they'll go forward if they really have to, and but they're not loving it up there. Then you have the net regular, and the net regular can go and they can go win a point up there, and they want to get to the net to shorten some points. And if they're playing somebody who's really grinding them down, so to speak, they will go to the net more often. Okay, I'm going to take a little break here because I have to turn a light on. So, yeah, man, I'm so pro with my go lives. I'm so pro. All right. Is that better? No, it's not. What am I going to do about that? Let's solve this problem on the fly. There's my webcam right there. And whatever. Okay, whatever. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway. So then the net regular, this is fun. The net regular, can come in and when they want to finish. And then you have the net controller. So you have somebody who gets a lot more confident. They can come in often. They can take away the net from the other player, right? And then you have the net dominator. So the net dominator, you can serve and volley with, regularity and even to be a full-time serve and volleyer, first and second serve. So you have these different levels, right? And so if you want to go from one level to the next, you need some intentionality to what you're doing. One of the problems in Western thought is that in the Western world, we oftentimes think of decision making as always being a conscious thing, right? Where okay, here I have to consciously think about it. Wait a second, is that a short enough ball for me to go in? Yes, I'm going to go in. And then, I'm going in. But there isn't time for all that. You don't have time to think about all of that. I'm going to switch out of this right here. I think what I'm going to do is go. I'm going to change my background because I think I'll go like that. Let's see what happens. No, that's not doing it. Andre's not doing it. Can I go blur? Here. Okay, I'm just going to suffer. That's all right. Anyway, hope you're entertained by all the horrible missteps of the technology that I'm doing today. So now the interesting thing is there's a new theory in neuroscience that 100% of our decisions are made subconsciously. and then we become aware of them like a half a second later. So you subconsciously need to be able to make the decision to come in, because once it starts getting into your conscious mind and you start thinking and consciously thinking in words and making verbal decisions in your mind what to do, that just takes way too much time. So one of the number one things to do is to set your default position to I'm coming in, right? And I've talked before about my conversation with Dr. Peter Fatty, who is a visual researcher, and he works with Major League Baseball hitting instructors. And so he said this, is that the batter has to decide whether to swing or not before the pitch is thrown. So let's unpack that for a second, because it has some bearing on how you're going to come to the net. All right. So the batter comes up to bat, and based on the situation or what the manager has told them to do, they're either swinging or they're not swinging. And so if they have decided not to swing, there's actually not enough time for them to decide to swing. So even if that pitch comes in and it's really juicy and it really could have been a very hittable pitch, the batter has decided not to swing, and so they are not going to swing. And then that you see that fairly frequently, where the batters decided not to swing and it was a very hittable pitch, and they're like, I wish I had swung at that, but you can't go backwards. And then on the other side of it, once if the batter has decided to swing, then if they notice something about the delivery of the pitch, they can decide not to swing. So we're going to use that. So there is time to decide not to swing. And or if not swinging decision hasn't been made soon enough, to check the swing. So, it starts getting a little complicated, but that's okay. So now, in order to simplify it, let's say you are, a net avoider and you want to start to become a net visitor. Then you can make up your mind that when you recognize that a ball is going into the service box, so it's landing in front of the service line, that you will go in on those. So now, but what do you have to do? You have to train your ability to recognize early balls that are going in. And this is the big difference between tennis and baseball, is that, a baseball is delivered from 60 feet away, right? And it does not bounce. And it is often going 90 to even over 100 miles an hour from 60 feet away, right? And yet on a tennis court, the ball is coming often from 80 to 90 to even 100 feet away. Okay. So, 100's a little bit far, but 80 to 90, very frequent, right? 80, 85. So, and then not only that, but a tennis ball is covered with fuzz, and it's also not often going over 90 miles an hour off of a ground stroke. That doesn't happen very much, right? So you have slower ball speeds, and then the ball slows down because of the fuzz on it, and then it slows down even more when it bounces. But it's that initial flight that you need to be able to read. So one thing that I do with players who haven't been coming to the net much at all, and I want them to start coming in, is I will feed them balls that land in the service box, and they have to come in every time. So short ball, I'll get this is when I'll do a line drill, and I'll have, 3, 4, 5 players, and I'll hit them the short ball, and then they come in, they make one volley, then they go back in line, short ball, volley, short ball, volley, short ball, volley. And then what's happening is they're starting to recognize that short ball. Okay. Then what I can do is I can, every fourth or fifth shot, I can hit one that's farther. And then that's one that they're going to stay back on. It's going to go past the service line, and they have to see the difference. So then you're training better the recognition of the ball coming in. So in working with my teams, one of the things that has been most helpful is we will do a drill where the server gets only one serve. So that takes away a significant amount of the offense from that serve. And the returner must come to the net. So the returner must come to the net. And here's the kind of the crazy, obvious, hidden thing is that, serves have to be hit short. All right. I mean, by virtue of the service line, then a serve has to be a short enough ball that you could approach. So we're putting the server in a situation where they're hitting second serves, and the other player comes in and they get to recognize these balls that are going to land short again and again and again. All right. And then the next thing that we do is we will have them play where the server gets two serves, but the returner must come in every time the server hits a second serve, because what that fosters is the shift from being sort of on the defensive because you're returning a first serve to shifting to being on the offense, and your default decision is to go forward, and you're sort of forced into it, so you have to react. And then the thing that I notice once this happens, once we've done that numerous times, is that the players start to recognize in match play a short ball, and they just automatically come in. So now I have a funny story, because I was teaching, how to get to the net at a conference. And at the same time, I was also teaching athlete-centered coaching. And a young guy had kind of a statement, and he was sort of challenging my thinking on this. So I was talking about how, as an athlete-centered coach, I put my players in situations where the decision is already made, right? And so he said, well, wait, how does that help the player make decisions if the decision's already made for them? Right. And he was kind of pushing back, and it was fine. It was fine. And I was like, because I have then freed them from having to make a conscious decision. It's an automatic decision. They are coming in, and then they train that confidence. And then we put them in a situation that's just slightly different and a little bit more challenging, because even though there's this really hard rule that on second serves you must come to the net, players will forget. So you put them in a situation where they're playing a tiebreaker, and the server gets two serves, but they must come in on the second serve because they're still in that defensive mode. They haven't learned to shift quickly to offensive mode when the opponent hits a second serve. So it's a very, very gentle increase in the amount of offensiveness, but they have to make that shift mentally. All right. And then we let them play in an open situation. But then the funny thing that I notice is, because of the first two progressions, as I mentioned earlier, they are much better at instinctively recognizing a ball that's going to land in front of the service line that they can approach on. So, and that's really what, a net regular needs to go from net visitor, because a net visitor is really only going to come to the net, sort of reactively, where the ball was so short that they were pulled into the net, and then they found themselves at the net, and then they played up there. But the net regular wants to take advantage of every very juicy opportunity. So So that's an important thing to be able to do. And then we go to from net regular to net controller. And that's where some practice and some live ball situations need to happen. And the player needs to be able to figure out what's the deepest shot that I can take. And so, I mean, in my own game, I was very much a baseliner, retrieving baseliner, and didn't want to come to the net at all. And then my coach taught me to do exactly that, come in on things that were right at the service line or in front. Okay. And then the time came to try to take a ball that was 3 feet past the service line and see if I could do that and make it in close enough to be offensive. And then over time, then any ball that was in the front half of the big rectangle, right? The big rectangle. Some people call it no man's land. And I'm like, but what about women? Right. So, but, I just call it the big rectangle. So I could take pretty much, depending on the opponent, I could take anything in the front half of that big rectangle and come in, with the exception of, pretty severely angled shots or incredibly hard hit shots, or, there were some exceptions to that. Or, very high bouncing, what have you. So there are exceptions to that, but by and large, that was good. And very few people are going to be very successful taking anything in the second half, the back half of the big rectangle, to be able to come in. So it's a matter of, having, a very easy, manageable decision to make, where your chances of success are really high, and then working to develop a better ability to make the decision to come in, because you recognize that a ball is in your comfort zone. And even so, you're going to make some mistakes. So I was presenting on how to get your teams at the net, and one of the pros pushed back on me because I was having people come in on balls that were pretty deep, because I was forcing them to pretty much come in on everything, right? So this pro, said, well, this isn't a good idea. And I'm like, okay, yeah, right. But how is that person going to discover that it's not a good idea unless they try it and they see the results? So having your coach just tell you, oh, don't do this because that could happen, that's one thing. But actually practicing and coming in and then seeing, oh yeah, I got past pretty quickly, I mean, that's a lot more concrete, and that feeds the decision making even better. And in some matches and against some opponents, you might come in on a so-called bluff. I mean, I've taken balls off the baseline and then started running in, fully expecting I'm probably going to half volley my first ball. But yeah, this is like a surprise move. And from the baseline on a really high bouncing ball, you can hit that ball way up in the air and then sneak in behind it. So there are a lot of different ways to come to the net, and there are very few finite rules of what you need to do. But a very good guideline is to, at first, if you're not very comfortable, make sure that you have decided that you're coming in on every ball that lands in front of the service line, with few exceptions. Okay. And then what you have to do then also is like, okay, let's say an opportunity came and went, and this happens a lot, right? So I get players and they're in a practice match and they didn't go to the net, and I'm like, hey, you missed an opportunity there, and they went, yeah, or I forgot to go in. I'm like, okay, well, don't forget. So next time you see a ball like that coming, it's going to land there. So go forward. Don't hesitate. Right. So, and this is part of how we need to train ourselves, is because the difference between good players and great players is oftentimes in opportunities taken. So, the greatest players on the planet are going to take advantage of, 98% of the opportunities that they're given. And if they happen to blow one, then they're going to be a little upset with themselves. So, when I look at Rafael Nadal and, the times that he gets upset with himself, it's generally because he left an opportunity on the table. He doesn't. It's funny because he doesn't even really seem to get too bad if he misses a shot, unless he's missing, 2 in one game, right? But it's those missed opportunities. Had an opportunity to do this, but I didn't take it. And then, beginner players are not taking enough of the opportunities for sure. People who are moving from net avoider to net visitor, are leaving lots of opportunities on the table. People who are going from net visitor to net regular, need to start seizing on 75% or more of those opportunities. I can understand their reticence to, go forward and be more aggressive, but they want to start building that up to 90%. Don't leave so many opportunities in front of you. And, as you improve, right. And then the net controller is like, really hunting for that short ball. And if 1 in 20 times they leave that, then they're probably going to be upset with themselves too, so, because that was a chance to come in and shorten that point and win offensively and force an error. So anyway, hey, thanks for tolerating my continuing tech issues here, which, I resolve to solve those sometime soon with my lighting. But anyway, if you like this, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. Go to my YouTube channel and send me an email at infinitevisioncoach@gmail.com if you would like a free copy of the book. It'll be in a PDF format, and it's coming out soon. I'm very, very close to the end. I'm going to send it with diagrams that probably still need a little work, but I'm going to want some feedback on my diagrams so that I can dial those in and make them look really nice. All right. Thank you. And that's it for today. See you next Tuesday, or maybe sooner.